Hi all, I have another magnificent game to show you of Leela in tournament play. So the Chess.com Computer Championship Rapid Rumble. So this was a 15-minute with 5-second increment time control, so rapid chess basically. And the opponent here is the Xiphos chess engine 0.3. So that's a top 15 computer according to certain rating lists. I think the CCRL rating list, for example. So let's have a look at this game. D4 from Leela, and we have D5, C4, E6, Knight C3, Knight F6, and it's very trendy now, this Semi-Slav with C6 here. Bishop G5, D takes C4. Now this line it stems from this USSR versus rest of the world match. Or was it America? I think it was actually America. And Botvinnik against Denka was a key game. And it showed that after the Second World War, Botvinnik had a huge amount of opening preparation and was playing the black side of this and had a fantastic game, which is on the channel actually. I'll put a link somewhere in the pinned comment. So there's a lot of theory in this line. And I believe it's because of Botvinnik's influence on Soviet chess. This line was a really heavily analysed system. So this is very well trodden, this idea that black plays G5 here and white sacks the knight to regain the piece here. This is seen a lot before. So G3, bishop B7, bishop G2. An alternative here, which is also popular, is E takes. So for example, C5, D5, this has been seen before. And white's thought to have a small edge. So bishop G2 here, queen B6, E takes. This has all been seen before, black castles, queenside. So it's a very, very aggressive idea by black. So very interesting attacking game by Botvinnik when it was first sort of seen. And now here on move 14, usually I'm talking over 300 games, white plays castling here, white castles. So for example, this has been seen a huge amount of times. This kind of continuation has been seen a great deal. Yeah, and it carries on like that, for example. But here we seem to get an opening kind of novelty. It's only like one game in Chess Base Live, but with this next move. And I was a little bit concerned again. Is Leela just blitzing at the opening without too much consideration? So this proves the opposite. If this innovation is really good, then this is quite an amazing discovery, Queen E2. So it seems to leave the D pawn hanging. And black can either take or play C5 though, because also it's a little bit looser as well. Now black actually played C5. You might think, well, why not just take? Let's have a look at taking. It's a good question. Now there has been a chess base game with castling, but that allows knight E5, and black should be fine here. This position is nothing to write home about. You can see that black's D3 square. Black's got that D3 square here. It seems very, very comfortable. And it is actually technically an even position. This is not the follow-up idea of the innovation, it seems, as far as I can tell. I believe here it's important to play rook D1 and positively encourage queen E5, for example. Because this lets white get back the pawn basically with interest, because queen takes, rook takes, dragging the king away from the bishop. So this is a very important key line. Knight takes, getting the pawn back with interest. For example here, f4, check, it doesn't matter. This position, it doesn't matter to lose b2. So even if white loses b2, even this position here, so 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's equal on pawns, but white's better here. These pawns are more advanced. We have the form pawn ready to queen, potentially much more ready to queen than these guys, it seems. So for example, bishop f8, king f3, let's say b4, bishop e4. If the bishops control quite a lot of squares here, this light square bishop in particular, it means this is a clear advantage for white basically. So this queen e5 doesn't work. So the innovation is very interesting. If queen b6, you might wonder, well, what's the point here? Let's continue. This is just a variation. So c5, taking h4. I think white, Leela, here, has seen that this is just good for white in this position. You can, she can undermine the queen side a bit, and this, for instance, now queen d8, mate. So this position here, now that's immune because of queen takes d7. If we get this scenario, white again seems to be having a good time there. Another thing about this, after rook d1, so queen c5 just runs into knight e4. So queen c5 actually hits the bishop, isn't it? So knight e4 actually hits the queen and protects the bishop. And this is a really fun line, because after check, the intention seems to be, as far as I can tell, king f1. And this position is good for white, with a big advantage. So it seems that whatever way it's played, it seems this is no accident, this move. This is no blitz move. It seems to be an opening innovation, an opening novelty. Staggering. And it was played, I watched this game live, and it was like Leela was taking 5 minutes, like to almost 15 at one part of the game, and then started taking time after, but the opening seems really blitzed out. So somehow this was learned. I think this pattern, there's something about this. Anyway, so c5 was played, and the game goes on. D takes, and even here it looks as though, even if black doesn't win the pawn directly, isn't this really nice for d3? The queen sack doesn't work at all, by the way. Yeah, as you might expect, this is just good for white. So let's keep the same lines. So white castles, and now bishop takes, king takes. Now a forcing variation to be aware of if you're going to play this with white is after check, there's a seemingly poxy move you have to play. If you play queen f3, can you see what black can do? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video. Black just wins basically. Rook takes h2 here, winning the queen. So the idea here, it would seem, by the way, if you're interested in playing this, is f3. Yeah, to play f3. For example, like this, h4, a4, and again, white has a small edge here, it seems. White turns out to have a small edge. So anyway, bishop h6, not even using the check, just keeping the queen on b6. We have h4, bishop takes. Here now, it's much safer, by the way. We can just play queen f3. Clearly, there's no rook h2, so this is fine. So bishop takes, hg. So Leela's got the form pawn for the endgame here. This is a form pawn, really quite good in endgames. And it seems vulnerable though, these pawns. Well, g5. If rook h7 just to try and double, pardon me, rook h7 just to try and double, it's hopeless. Rook h1, and if white gets that h file in this kind of scenario, in fact, rook h4 is possible, even if the knight stops the rook here, rook h4 to hit c4. This scenario is actually, you might think this is losing a piece. It's not, because the form pawn comes to the rescue of g6. So white regains the piece with an advantage. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. There's a lot of variations. This form pawn protects white's position, basically, in a tactical manner, in a tactical sense. So here, hitting g5. And now b4 is played. So this is the start of fixing to undermine this structure. Now, if c takes here, then actually a takes is sufficient. And even if g5 is lost, it seems as though white's doing better here. For example, like this. This is a line, interesting line, where white's getting an advantage. So, in fact, knight d3, which seems very pleasant, knight d3 on the surface. Knight e4 protects g5 now. We have rook d4. And now, actually, a4 is played, undermining. A very important move order here, after taking, is to play queen e3. Very, very important. Because if rook takes a4, black has, bang, queen c6. And this ruins things for white, this fork on e4 and a4, as you might think. b5, and it's rook takes e4, which gives black an advantage, actually. I was staggered, actually, that this doesn't. I'll show you why. Takes. It turns out these pawns are enough to draw here, even a piece down. This threatens, like, mating. Yeah, this turns out as though, yeah, white's at least got a draw or better. In fact, ends up with an advantage, with a winning advantage in this line, because the knight's overwhelmed here and white's just going to be making progress. White has a big advantage there. So that's crazy, but it turns out, yeah, that's the case. So in fact, this position, yeah, it's rook takes e4, which is the way to play it. So anyway, white doesn't want to allow that. So the queen e3 is a prophylaxis against queen c6, because now the rook would be hanging, so taking without queen c6, because queen takes d4. So black renews that idea, that queen c6 here, by protecting the rook. And you might be thinking, actually, could that have been played in a different move order by fixing, by hitting the rook here? Well, knight takes threatens knight c2, so this move order is a disaster. So it's the exact move order, as you might expect, that Leela plays. She plays all the right tunes in all the right notes in all the right order. Okay, so it's a4. The mission of Leela on the queen side is to fragment. The mission here is to preserve and have these dangerous pass pawns in the endgame, the potential. So queen e3, we see rook fd8. And now knight c3. Yeah, so that knight's not a tactical target at the moment. These pawns have been fragmented, and black greedily goes for that pawn. So at the moment, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. White's a pawn down. But now, key move, knight e2. And in fact, there's one of two moves which are very, very strong here. This is one of two. White's position is actually really strong, it seems, even with queen f3. For example, taking check, rook takes a4, and this is a disaster for black. And if there, to go back, check, this is also very, very nice for white. So, in fact, this position is very comfortable here already after knight e2. With queen f3 an option. So the rook goes back, queen gets kicked, and you see it's done its job actually, because now the queen is in front of the rooks. That's important here, because now knight c3 is a very different kettle of fish. Leela's going to get her pawn back. She's done the fragmentation job. Black's number of isolated pawns is just basically more than Leela's here. Her pawns are going to be better. I mean, this was the visual impression I got from watching the live relay. This game had something to do with pawns. I can qualify that now more in slow motion. It seems to be a process of fragmentation and preservation on this side. In a nutshell here. Check, queen e4. So the simplifications favour the preservation of the pawns. The knight on e4 is really a great protector here of these pawns. And these pawns are about to fall off, it seems. This knight's supported now, and the pawns start falling off. So Leela, by taking this pawn, it's now 4 pawns each, and still these pawns are weak, and these pawns are very strong. Rook c7. Pawns are the soul of chess. That's why I think Leela's got the most soulful games going of any chess AI entity. If c3 here, by the way, just knight takes c3 is nice to protect the rook. It's pointless playing c3. So rook c7. And now look, a7's just targeted. That's protected. We have this move, which definitely stops against c3. And now we have king h3, believe it or not. Rook d4. Check. Knight c3. And now there's a big threat of knight b5. These pawns are just targets, but also the rooks are potentially targeted. Rook d8. f4, strengthening the pawns a little bit more in some respects. Check. Rook d2. King f3. This rook cd7. Now we have rook e1, which does provide rook e3 in some cases. King d8. We have rook e2, but also rook e2 to try and simplify. So more simplification. This just favours these pawns. Basically, these pawns are getting more vulnerable with this simplification, and these pawns are kind of getting stronger. The potential and the potential weakness, potential strength, potential weakness. Knight d3. Rook a4, yeah, look at this. This is overpowering now. There's continual pressure on both of these weak pawns. And it seems, there's knight b5 on rook c7, things like knight b5. So in fact, this is going downhill for black here. This happens, knight b5. So hitting the rook, hitting a7. Now rook b7, but now this move ties black in knots. It's forking b7 and c4. Rook d7. And yes, Leela's now a pawn up. So from the isolated pawns, a ripe apple fell, leaving Leela a pawn up, and still this pawn is a target, and still these pawns are a total menace. Knight b3, knight e5, beautiful knight as well. The knight is much superior now. Hitting f7 now, this is the next target. It's totally lost for black, this position here already. Check here. Knight b3. White has won the game already. Leela could just actually cash out with knight takes d7. She didn't. She attacked the knight. She could cash out because these pawns technically are totally winning after g6. For example, here f7, just queening. The knight supports the queening square. So this is just, yeah, it's pointless now. It's a futile exercise unless one side disconnects. This is totally going to be winning for white. Leela, actually though, interestingly, started using a lot of time later on in the game. When it seems to be completely won. In any case, the position is just totally won. It's obviously queen b1. Okay, so checkmate. It goes to the finish in these games. Different rules to TC EC in that it's played to the death. So pretty clear cut there. So pretty stunning game from that Novelty. As I say, this is one of the most heavily researched opening systems since the Botvinnik Denker against Botvinnik USSR versus USA radio match, which is on this channel. So this whole opening has a mass of opening theory, and it's from Botvinnik that then Kasparov took the disciplines of Botvinnik to become a major, opening theoretician. So we're talking this Novelty is of huge value to study for white in this line. It seems queen e2. It seems as though in some lines the king's coming to f1. In some lines f3 needs to be played. But it seems as though overall there's fragmentation occurring on the queen side and the pawns are being preserved on the king side. for the endgame. So all in all, it's an opening which really favours Leela's long-sighted view of the game, I believe, because it's all about the pawns on both sides of the board, really. So comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.